Hello, my name is Justin Bright. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.2.2, in which I am attempting to make Kerbals a multiplanetary species. And we visit the Kerbal Space Center on this cloudy day to start working on our plan to colonize Duna. So we have, and we can actually do that first. So we have a rover on the surface of Duna, which we have set down to do some planning for what locations we are going to be using here on Duna for the location of our base. So one thing that we would like to do pretty quick here is to make sure that the flags are all in place and we have the locations absolutely set that we are going to be setting up our bases, because as you recall, there are 3 different biomes that we are going to be using. But before we actually do that, they are tucked up nice and cozy in the habitation modules that have been deployed on the Geo rover, and it looks like it's getting into nighttime, or maybe it's early morning. One way or the other, it's dark. So let's go do. So we have a bit of a plan to get into place before we get all crazy here with anything else. Basically, my plans for sending things out to Duna are mostly karborundum related. And with the discovery of a band of karborundum that is incredibly dense around the sun, just outside the orbit of Moho, I think we are going to use the last of our funds, the last of our reserves of exotic minerals to create the karborundum that we need to launch a torch drive. And what we're going to do with this, and the last little bit of karborundum that I can afford, is send this out into the orbit of the sun around Moho. And this is not an Alcubierre drive. This is just the biggest SAS that I've ever seen. But this is actually going to go out, and it is going to collect karborundum. And if you see these parachutes here, these are individual giant tanks that we are going to be collecting, I'm hoping, around 20,000 units of karborundum a piece. And then they're going to be returning back to Kerbin, where I will be recovering them for money, and then we are never going to have to worry about money again. I do enjoy career mode. I've gotten some questions about this. I do enjoy career. I do enjoy doing dealing with contracts and having to be constrained by money, but at a certain point, we just want to get moving, and we're not going to cheat or anything, but we are going to exploit the best moneymaker that I've found, which is returning incredibly expensive materials. And let's just see, if we were to have 4 tanks of 19,500 karborundum, that would get us over 300 million funds. So we would be fine. And I would also like to use this return of karborundum to Kerbin. I'd like to think that the karborundum that I've been using so far has been stuff that's been created very expensively in a lab somewhere on Kerbin. I don't think you're supposed to, if we weren't supposed to be able to use karborundum out of here, it's fully possible. It's in Rover Dude's capability to limit this so that you could not actually put this into the tank. But he didn't do that. So, but it does feel a little weird and cheaty to be able to launch torch drives from Kerbin without actually having a supply of karborundum here on Kerbin. So, the way that we're going to get around that is we are going to have the last of this theoretically created lab-grown karborundum, and we're going to use that to create this one big great torch drive. And this is going to go out, it's going to collect karborundum, we're going to send a whole bunch of that karborundum home, and then I'm going to say that we have unlocked the secrets of karborundum. We're going to have enough funds that we've collected from karborundum that we'll be able to launch any torch drives or anything else that we want, warp drives, everything else, without any worry about where we're getting that material. So that's what the plan is for this. And to make sure that this is not just a single-use vessel, this has a big, tremendously expensive torch drive. This 3.75 meter torch drive is 12.5 million. All this karborundum is making up the rest of that expense. Big reactor, big tanks of ore, everything else. You'll notice that this thing attaches here with docking ports. And this doesn't have a docking port, but they'll detach from the docking port, and then I'll be able to dock things up. And this is actually also going to be, as you may have noticed from the name, what we're going to use to get our stuff out to Duna. So we'll be sending out the base kits attached to this. So enough talking about that. Let's get this thing launched. All right, here we are on the launch pad, and hopefully this thing is strutted up in the way that we need it to be. This thing has enough karborundum and ore to get about 40,000 meters per second of delta V, so we'll call this a single stage to orbit, I guess. So yeah, I guess we're going to see how this thing flies. It's not going to be flying very well, I can definitely tell you that, because there's like 300 parts on this because I needed this many parachutes just to be able to make sure this thing can land, and I did include drogues this time, so hopefully that will not be an issue. So, all right, 3, 2, 1, launch. Kaboom! I think I forgot my sound. Oh my god, and we're very, very wiggly, and we have way too much thrust to weight ratio going on right now. All right, so let's throttle down. Oh, it's so wiggly. Hold on. Auto strut to heaviest part. There, hopefully that helps. Auto strut to root. All right, so here we are going, but hold on. That's settings. There we go. Now the sound's on. All right, so here we are just smashing through the atmosphere. The SAS module on this thing is keeping us right on target. I'm not sure if yeah, I don't think the torch drives can gimbal, but yeah, it's look at this. Look at these numbers. We're climbing up over 13,000 kilonewtons of thrust with a specific impulse that is approaching 10,000 seconds, which is absolutely ridiculous space magic, but that's kind of where we're going with this one. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I guess that's kind of where we've been going for a while with this one, as we're trying to explore all the different features and technologies in the USI constellation. We could, I suppose, do this with, and this by which I mean the actual mission to colonize Duna. We could do that with conventional rockets, like that's something we're planning on in real life, but and it's only easier on Kerbin. However, I feel like that would just take dozens of launches and a lot more time. Ooh, hold on a second. Did I ever turn on the reactor? Oh my goodness. Yeah, we have a pretty huge amount of battery on this thing, but yeah, it'll run out eventually, even with this torch drive, because the torch drive uses electricity as well. But yeah, so there are, like, we could have done this normally, like we could have, but it would have taken me a lot longer, and I'd like to kind of just get to it and explore all of the different cool things that the USI constellation has to offer, and I think this is pretty neat. So, all right, looks like we're getting up there. This is pretty uneventful, so I'll see you in orbit. Alright, so we are approaching apoapsis, and look at this thing whip around. Yeah, real easy to move around when you have this thing. I think it has like 3,000 or some ridiculous number newtons of rotational torque capacity. So yeah, that's makes it pretty easy to move even big heavy vessels around, and that's kind of the idea. Like, this thing has an abundance of thrust. I think this thing can get up to 5 or 8 or some number of thrust to weight ratio, but I'm planning on carrying incredibly heavy things on this, so I'm able to attach 3.75 meter payloads on each of these little honey badger end caps here, and that's going to allow me to bring out a pretty large amount of mass using a torch drive, which allows me to get the high delta V numbers that we will need to really make progress quickly on getting things out there and take really energetic trajectories, we'll call them. All right, so first step is I think we're going to wait till the next pass, and what I would like to do is not just get out into the regime where we can find karborundum around the sun, but we would also like, which way? This way. Oops. We would also like to find out, not find out, we would also like to get there quickly is the thing. So we not only want to get there, but I'm probably going to add a little bit of like radial spin on this just to very quickly get there, because we want to minimize the amount of time that we are actually in flight. We got to get back. We have a transfer window to catch, because I think we're going to be sending this in a more conventional sort of way, this express tug. So we want to be back within 329 days is really the key. So we are going to accelerate. Let's zero that out and just see. And then I'm going to have to figure out how to get it back home, of course, but that's, you know, a problem for future Justin. 7,500 meter per second delta V burn, and that brings us down to the 5.4 million meter mark, or 5.4 billion meter mark over the sun that I think has our, why is that? Why are you doing this? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wrong buttons all over the place. But yeah, this gets us to the 5.4 billion meter mark over the sun that has all the delicious karborundum. And then I can kind of circularize there, and that gets us there in 50 days, which is kind of the key point. So we do that in 50 days, and then I will have a tremendous amount of delta V left to circularize, fill up the tanks as much as I dare, and then head right on back to drop these tanks off onto Kerbin's surface. So that is the plan for that. So let's get up to the maneuver node. All right, and even with this mighty, even with the mighty KFD 300 torch drive, which gets at maximum 37,500 kilonewtons of thrust at 10,000 second specific impulse, space magic. This is still going to be a 2-minute burn, which is kind of crazy. But we are, just imagine, so going back to my original point, just imagine if this had been done with a more conventional engine. So that would be something like a nuclear engine, which would have at most, I think, something like 800 seconds. So we would have to have a tremendous amount more fuel, and we would have to have a tremendous amount of burn time. Like this would be hours long, an hours long burn if I was going to be able to do that, because it would be at something 0.1 thrust to weight ratio if I'm lucky. So this is the kind of thing that is very challenging to do in real life, and we are circumventing it for purposes of gameplay. This is not intended to be a completely realistic sort of scenario, but this is, you know, this gets us to some place where we can actually really enjoy getting this up and moving, getting this base built. I have some pretty cool designs queued up for you guys to look at how we're going to build this base. I have some cool techniques that I'm interested in trying out. So yeah, this is just a method of getting to the crunchy and delicious gameplay rather than focusing on the realism. So I do apologize if that's something that you were hoping for a more realistic approach. But I think this has enough nods to realism that we can kind of work with this, and we'll see what a near future space exploration might look like. So this will be something like in the board game High Frontiers, for example, which deals a lot with these sorts of near future technologies, where you actually, you know, you play as one of a couple different space corporations or government agencies that is trying to explore the solar system and colonize various bodies and build near futuristic technologies, all with real crunchy hard science. So yeah, it's a little bit reminiscent of that, I like to think, where we are dealing with stuff that is plausible within 100 years, but may not be possible quite yet. So anyways, we are coming up within another 15 seconds, the end of this burn, and then this vessel will be on its way. All right, so we are just cutting the throttle quite a bit and getting ourselves down to the exact trajectory that we are looking for. So we are going to be hurtling in close to the sun at about 5.4 billion meters over the surface. And let's see, right about out here, I think, is where we are going to be wanting to take a look at checking our karborundum collector, our Bussard collector, to see if we are getting a maximum amount, because we may have to stay inside this area for several days. We want to be able to make sure we get every little drop of karborundum that we need for the future. And there's a maximum limit. These things are going to be kind of weight limited to about 20,000 per tank, but I will definitely be able to fill this one up all the way. Because if I fill up these anymore, I don't think they'll be able to land. So anyways, we'll check back in on that one a bit later on. All right, good morning, Madbeth, Gersey, and Jai. It is time. You've been here for a couple days, I think, actually, while I've been screwing around with other things. But yeah, it's time for you to pack it in and get ready to roll and plant some flags. So let's go ahead and retract our habitats. Retract. And we need to wait for the morning sun to charge our batteries fully. So I think it might be best if we actually turn around. Oops, I'm controlling from the wrong place. That would also help. Here we go. Brakes, 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 brakes. There, and turn this around and then point our solar panels directly at the sun, so that we can catch that morning light and get our batteries charged up for the trip. Okay, stop. Cool. So there's a little bit of shadow from the forward solar panels, but that's fine. We're gaining the same amount as we were before, but whatever. All right, as the sun rises high over their landing site, we have a full electric charge here on the Geo rover. So let's go ahead and save the game, and we are going to tag the individual places that we want our bases. So let's take a look. Oh, they've actually been doing a little bit of geology, botany, and colonization work while they were here. That's pretty cool. I don't know why I'm looking at that. It's fine. Let's open up KerbNet access. So as you recall, we are on the border of the poles, the lowlands, and the southern basin. Those are the three things, the three biomes that we really need to have to make this base work. Because each one has unique resources that cannot be found on the others. So we are going to be doing a little bit of driving around to make sure that I know exactly where the intersection is of those three locations. So we have this here in tagged, and we are on the poles. We want this to refresh automatically because I'm trying to figure out which way I'm pointed. I find it very difficult to orient myself on here because there's no indication of what way I'm pointing, which way I'm going. Am I going north? Is this north? I have no idea. So I'm on the poles, and it looks like I am now headed up this way towards the southern basin. So I'm waiting for the surface scanning module to indicate that that is where I am. Nope, I'm in the lowlands. Okay, so that's the border between the lowlands and the poles, was right here-ish. So lowlands, which way now? Okay, so now the poles, where is... Maybe if we go this way, we will find the third border. So we're in the lowlands still. So it looks like we want to actually be going this direction, maybe? Or am I pointed the wrong way? See, this is what's giving me trouble, is I have no idea which way I'm pointed. It looks like I'm going this way on the map based on where it's refreshing. So let's just turn this way, away from the poles. Southern Basin, here we go. Okay, so now we're looking for the place. So we're gonna head back west, westish, and we want to find the place where the southern basin intersects the lowlands specifically. So the actual bases may not necessarily be like right on top of each other here, right? So we may actually space them out a bit, but what I want to find is where the actual intersection is, like, so I know the direction. Okay, so it occurs to me that we are sitting on a 14-degree slope, which is not exactly conducive to building a base. So I think the more important thing is realizing that when we actually finish building this base, we are going to have the capability of transferring resources up to 2 kilometers apart. So more important than finding where the exact border is finding a relatively flat spot in each of these biomes nearby so that we can form a triangle with the parts, with no part more than 2 kilometers away from any of the others. So we're going to drive over here to what looks like a slightly flat spot. 6.5 degrees, and we are in the poles right now. 4.7, that's a lot better than it was, but I feel like we can do better. Yeah, I think this little spot right here is actually pretty nice as far as this goes. 5.0, 5.6, where's that 4.7? Whoop, there it is. Okay, so this is our poles spot, which is further, I thought that poles was going to be further north, but like I said, I'm having a real hard time reading this map. All right, so we're going to call this our spot for building on the poles, because this is relatively flat. Flattish. Okay, so cool. Now let's go find the next biome. All right, so here we are in the lowlands. So let's see, and we are 300 meters away from the polar flag. So let's see, where is a flat spot here? Looks like still down this slope. There's a bit of flatter space. Actually, over here looks good. Let's take a look over this way to see what we can do. So lowlands, staying within 500 meters of this flag. We're headed over this way. 7.6 degrees. Looks like there's a slight depression here. 12 degrees, that's actually worse. 8 degrees. How are we doing? We're okay. 5 degrees, there we go. Let's see, yeah, this, whoa, careful. Yeah, this looks all right. Let's do this. So that's 800 meters away from the poles, so we can now park, and we're going to call this our lowlands location. Lowlands, less flat. Okay, so now we just need to find the third and final point of this triangle. All right, so I see that, well, maybe it's my eyes playing tricks on me, but this place looks a little bit flat, maybe? And hopefully it's also the poles. I guess we're going to find out. We're driving towards the white ice caps of Duna, so one would hope that this is the direction of the poles. It's really just a matter of when we cross over that threshold into that biome, and then hopefully up here we will be able to find a spot. Oh, yep, here we are. We are on the poles, and now we are just looking for a place that is flat, because this is not. And then my game crashed. So let this be a lesson to you to always save your game very, very frequently. Okay, so let's see if I can get those 2 flags back in the ground, and I'll be right back. All right, so now with fewer crashes, we actually have our location. So you can see that I have the Southern Basin flag set up over there, only 1,200 meters away. The lowlands about 700 meters away, and I found actually better locations for each of those. They are both sitting on terrain that, at least in a very small area around them, they're in little depressions that are about at about 3-ish degrees, and I found another 3-ish degree flat location on the top of a hill here at the poles. So this is it. This is where our locations are going to be. So let's go out and put down the final flag. All right, Gersey, you can do the honors once again. Put down the flag that says poles. Also flat. you can, take from that and guess what my previous flags were called. All right, so now it's just a matter of getting these Kerbals back once again. Well, we're going to save the game so I don't crash again, for goodness sake. And then all that's left is going to be bringing home the Kerbals. They have to get back to the Duna ascent vehicle, back about 26-ish kilometers away, and that's going to be a very long and boring journey, which I will probably spare you guys. So next time you see Mad Beth, Jai, and Gersey, they'll probably be on their way up to the Starlifter shuttle where they will be hanging out. And that's actually all the time I have for this episode. So if you enjoyed this one, please share and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.